We're going to start with the young folks coming in here first. See, I get my normally I have to stand up here and tell the story about it, but they're just going to have to do it themselves this morning. With all that said, Kristi Hunter, come on down.
Good morning.
Morning.
I feel a bit at a disadvantage because I've never heard one of these talks before. So I have no idea what you're expecting. Hopefully I can live up to your expectations. So as most of you may already know, I'm not from the area originally. I'm actually from Arkansas. And we have some fellow Arkansans in the group as well. And I spent most of my life there. So I'm relatively new compared to most of you to the area of Hampton Roads. I've been here about 3.5 years. And instead of talking about my job or growing up or something like that, I thought I would spend my 5 minutes today talking about how I came to Hampton Roads and also how I came to Rotary, and that was through my experience as a Rotary International Ambassadorial Scholar. So growing up in a very small town, I always knew what Rotary Club was because it was like the only civic organization in our town, and everybody who was anybody was a member. So I always knew what the club was, what the organization was, and I always held them with very high regard because this was an organization that did a lot for my community. And after law school, I went into the real world and got a job and realized maybe there were some things that I still wanted to do before I really settled down and got into the workforce. So after about 2 years, I decided I wanted to go back to school, and I wanted to go abroad, which I had the opportunity to go during the summers when I was in college to go abroad a few times, but I never really lived anywhere outside of the state of Arkansas. So I thought, this would be a great opportunity. I can go abroad, I can further my education some more and get this experience living in another culture. So when I decided I wanted to do that, a friend of mine said, well, have you ever heard of the Rotary International Ambassadorial Scholar Program? I think you would be a really great applicant. And actually, they're taking applications now and they're due in 2 weeks. So if you want to apply, you better go on it. So I did, and it was quite an experience because I found a local Rotary Club to sponsor me because you have to have a sponsor. And it's a very small club in Rogers, Arkansas, and they didn't know anything about it. They didn't have any idea what this program was. They never sponsored someone. So I met with the president of the club, and I explained it to her. I showed her all the materials from Rotary International's website. I told her, all you have to do is just sign some papers, and you don't have to give anything. It's not a financial burden on the club because it's the money comes from Rotary International. And she said, oh, okay, well, we don't have to pay anything. So I met with that club several times, and I visited and came to their meetings several times before I actually embarked on the program, which I had about a year to prepare for, so that was really great. And the program itself, I can't speak highly enough about it. It was a life-changing experience for me at a point in my life when I thought I was pretty grown up. I didn't think I could change much more at that point, which probably sounds funny to all of you because I know I'm still very young, but it was something that really helped me to come out of my shell, to boost my confidence, because I went into it sort of by myself, but I made a community of friends in the other scholars and the Rotarians who were hosting me. So I was actually in Scotland. I was at the University of Edinburgh, and a club in the outskirts of Scotland in one of the suburbs called Curry-Balerno was my host club. And I had 2 host Rotarians, a husband and wife, who had just joined Rotary Club themselves. And they said, here you go, your first task is to host this scholar and take her around and show her what it's like to live in Scotland and also to teach her about our club. So I went to their meetings every single week. It became something that was really grounding for me. It was like a little home away from home there. And they accepted me with open arms. They offered lots of social activities for the other scholars. There were about 20 of us in the district there. They taught us how to curl. I didn't know that was a sport. They taught us how to dance the ceilidh, which, if any of y'all are familiar, it's like a Scottish country dance, and every big Rotary event has a ceilidh involved with a full band. So that was a lot of fun. And of course, we had a Burns night supper while I was there, so I got to hear the toast to the haggis. And I ate a lot of haggis, and I liked it. So
Did you know what was in it?
It's so delicious.
Did you know what was in it?
Yeah, it just tastes like spices.
Stop.
You know? With the neeps and the tatties. So, you know, just personally, it was very enriching. Obviously, the educational experience was phenomenal. At the University of Edinburgh, I was one of the only Americans, and we were studying international law. So most of the cases we were reading from the International Court of Justice, the U.S. was one of the parties, and they were always looking, you know, to me to kind of give them perspective. You know, what's it like to be an American, because we are such a big player in the world. I got to study with students from all over the world, from Ecuador, from Pakistan, from Egypt, from China, from all over Europe. So professionally, it was great for me to develop those connections as well. So again, I just can't speak highly enough about the program, and I had such a wonderful experience and such a great time sort of being part of that club for a year in Scotland. And when I came back and I moved here, you know, that was a top priority for me, was to find the right Rotary club to be a part of. So I looked around, you know, I visited several clubs, but honestly, I found your club because you happened to be next door to my office one day, and so I dropped in, and you know, I knew from the minute that I came in the door that this was the club that I wanted to be a part of. So just you really exemplify everything that I have in mind when I think of, you know, what good Rotarians are. So I'm so honored to be a part of the group, and so thankful for everything that Rotary has done for me thus far in my life, and I hope to continue to benefit and also to be able to now give back to Amen.
Just so you remember this day for your fine china. Also a Rotary four-way test keychain.
Thank you so much.
And Kristi was inaugurated, so to speak, by Brenda, so Brenda filled her all in. And Kristi has agreed that when we start our reading program, that she's going to help at Rosemont Elementary.
Super.
Thank you.
Okay, it's time for round two. Next up, Neal Kaplan. You've got a tough act to follow.
I'm slow, but I get there.
Sing a song while he's coming.
Kristi's going to be a hard act to follow, so hopefully if you need a nap, take one. Somebody will nudge you when it's over. All right, I'm going to lean up against here if you all don't mind. As I'm aging, for some reason, I'm getting stiffer, and it makes it a little more difficult for me to get around. When I heard that I had to do the biography, I read some of the ones every week when I first joined up. Charlie Firestone's been a pretty good mentor. I've known Charlie for a while. I really didn't know that much about how to do biography. My idea of biography is watching these news channels in the 60s with Mike Wallace, you know, things where you had Albert Einstein and all these different famous people. So I'm not famous, and I'm not running for political office. I grew up in the Bronx. I was really lucky to be born in the Bronx because I was right near Yankee Stadium. So as a little kid, 5, 6 years old, Roger Maris, Mickey Mantle, all those guys were the big people at the time, and it really was lots of fun because we didn't pay to go to the games. We went on the roof and turned on the radio and just looked down at the stadium. So that was really cool. And then for the highlights of the year, Dad would take us to a game, and we would get a baseball bat or a ball or a baseball cap from Yankee Stadium, which was really, really cool. I spent my summers in upstate New York, and my school year in New York City. I was really, really blessed because when I went to upstate New York, my whole family was there. My grandparents, when they migrated to the U.S., or immigrated to the U.S., got a piece of property, started a business, and raised a family. Well, the little town was called Fleischmann's. You've heard of the butter, Fleischmann's? Well, those folks started this town back in the 1800s sometime. And we would go up there in the summertime, and instead of having just my parents, I had my uncles, my aunts, and everybody's related grandparents to take care of us. So us kids, about 200 of us, would run amok. And we would do all kinds of stuff. They had a farmer, his name was Streeter. I was telling somebody at the last little gathering, I couldn't remember the guy's name, Streeter's farm. He would come and cut all the grass, and we had a baseball field, all these different things. He'd take care of everything. And all we would do was play. We'd chase his cows, you know, whatever. My grandmother would take me for a walk from the farm to Streeter's, which was probably from here to the back parking lot, with a little quart can, and we'd watch him milk the cow, pour it through a little strainer, cheesecloth, I think is what it was, and we'd get a little quart, and Grandma would walk back, and I'd have a glass of warm milk and some cookies. So that's awesome as a little kid. And that was great. So all of these things help form who and how I am. So I'm going to tell you, I'm a pretty intense person, and I can come over, having been a New Yorker for my first 12 years of my life. It never left me for some reason. So when you hear my New York accent, or my New York, or you see my New York attitude, I'm not going to apologize for it. Just realize that started when I was young, and I can't get rid of it. And I kind of like it in some cases. I grew up with a younger sister, Ina. She's 5 years younger than me. And we moved to New Jersey in 1969. I grew up in an area in the Bronx where there weren't any minorities. We had every immigrant you can think of in our area. And that was really, really cool, because I didn't know what discrimination or any of that stuff was until I moved to New Jersey. And then I got a quick dose. I moved twice while we were in New Jersey, and I ended up in a little town called Brick. Kind of appropriate. It was called Bricktown, and then while I was there, they changed it to Brick. I don't know if that was my fault or not, but that was me and the high school didn't get along. So when time came to go to senior year, they said, "You're not going to be a senior." And I said, "Why not?" They went, "Well, you don't have enough credits." Turned out it was their fault, but they wouldn't let me make them up, and they wanted me to stay back. Well, being fresh out of New York after just a couple of years, I had an attitude. So I told them to stick it. I joined the Navy, which is something I'd always wanted to do. PT 109 is my favorite all-time movie. So I joined the Navy. A couple months after boot camp, they sent me out to California for some specialized training, and I got bored. So I had a lot of free time, so I signed up at Barstow College and got my GED. And I had my GED before the high school senior class graduated. So I happened to be able to go back around the time they graduated, and being an ex-New Yorker, you can imagine what I did when I went to the high school. I'll just leave it at that. But that was really, really cool for me, because while I was in that school, every time I tried to do something that I thought was the right thing, somehow in their minds, no, we're going to suspend you for a day or two. You know, you tell me I have rights, and then I go to exercise them and you punish me. So that don't fly with me. So part of that has shaped who I am, and you'll see that in some of the things that you see that I do. While I was in the Navy, I did 22 years. I traveled to approximately 150 countries. Sometimes I'd go somewhere else once we were in port. I spent a lot of time in port, like 2 weeks at a time in Naples. During the 70s and 80s. For some reason, we didn't have enough gas. I was on the Kennedy, and we weren't nukes. Did a lot of traveling. While I was in the Navy, we would always have these little charity events. You know, you go help out the local community or the church or whatever it was. So I kind of got involved in a lot of that. And my grandparents and family had kind of leaned me in that direction because they were role models doing that same kind of thing as I was growing up. I met Charlie Firestone after I got out of the Navy in 1996 when I was working for a company called Cousins Construction. And what we did was we made cabinets and built out stores for Donna Karen, Jenny Craig, S&K. You may have heard of those folks, small companies. And Charlie and I stayed friends over the last 20 years as I traveled through time as a civilian. I went over from working at the cabinet company after 4 or 5 years. I went over to Craney Island and I was the training officer for the world's largest fuels depot. I did that for a little while. Then I got bored. Then I moved over to a paper rewinding company where we took big 10,000-pound rolls of paper and rewound them down to little receipts that you get when you go shopping, and assorted other paper products. They must have had 100 different things that we did. We made sheet paper, butcher paper, you name it, we did it. The fun thing was those machines were from 1929 to modern push-button technology, including wrapping the paper. So that was really cool. Moved on, went to industrial equipment working from home, and then to Batteries Plus. Batteries Plus, if you go to any Batteries Plus in this area, I built those stores for the owner. When I went to work for them, they had 2. We made enough money, he opened some more stores. I either remodeled them or built them for the owner. And that was fun for me. I have a wife, been married 35 years, not sure why. She must be crazy because she stayed with me. I have 3 children, 1 by a first wife, and then 2 by my wife Sue that I'm married to now. All my kids were working in the security field when they first started out. One son did installing high-end industrial security systems, Bon Jovi, Alan Alda, folks like that. And my one son, he's just a security guard walking around. And my daughter did private security. They all have moved on. They are now in health and fitness for my oldest son, trucking for my youngest son, and my daughter is in the insurance industry. My hobbies, woodworking, military history, and my biggest, most fun, which is how I count here, because Charlie said, you're already doing these things, why don't you come do them with Rotary, is mentoring young people, which I've been doing pretty much my whole life. So Charlie said, come. I came, and I gotta tell you, I really didn't think it was for me before I came. I did know about Rotary back in the 70s, but I didn't meet the qualifications, and that made me think maybe I wouldn't be a fit. I came, the first 2 meetings, I left here with a smile each time. I love you folks. I Oh, me too?
Yeah, you too, and a 4-way test keychain.
Thank you very much.
And Neal has helped us talk about mentoring the young folks at the Farm Fresh thing. He took care of those young folks that told them how to go to the door. That's how we made all those bags at the food bank. Taught those kids how to do that. And he's working with Tidewater Boat Builder.
Thank you.
Well done. Well done. All right, the newbies have done a really good job. We're going to move into the more seasoned folks. And you know, I thought at first we should take Santa, but no, where's Mary Lou?
Santa's last.
Yeah.
All he has to do is say ho, ho, ho. Boy, it's been a long time since I've been out here doing this. I was born in Pittsburgh with my family. But I grew up in Northern Virginia in a town called Vienna, Virginia. Went to college at Virginia Tech.
All the right places.
All the right places. Then after college, I moved down here and worked for a local structural engineering firm for 12 years before starting my own firm with 2 other people. So we are structural engineers, currently have 7 structural engineers, 12 employees. We work throughout the region. For those that don't know exactly what a structural engineer does, we work mostly with architects. Architects will give you the building, what it looks like, and we'll design it to resist the vertical loads, with the wind loads, the earthquake loads, and more lately for blast loads. So we do all the analysis and figure out the foundations and the frame of the building, and they decide what it's going to look like. So about 50% of our workload is with the DOD, the federal government, because of the region we live in. We've worked in areas including Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. We've worked in Qatar, in Korea, as well as Bulgaria. So, this area works throughout the region. Locally, we've done some projects that are not military, such as Williams Farm Rec Center, which everyone knows about. There's a new CHKD medical facility on Lansdowne Road. We did that. We did the Asian exhibit at the zoo. So we do a lot of local projects as well as military projects. Personally, so I have when I first came here, I was a single parent with 2 girls. I met my husband Wayne, who was an architect, and together we raised 2 boys and 2 girls. They're all adults now, all finished college. They live in Indiana, Wisconsin, California, and Virginia. All 3 out of 4 are in the sciences. We have a chemical engineer, a biomedical engineer, a doctor of geology, and a graphic artist. But they're all doing well. We all celebrated Thanksgiving in Chicago this year, which was a lot of fun. And we celebrated like one of the few times where everybody has a job. So I do enjoy the outdoors. We do a lot of backpacking, hiking, kayaking. We did a couple years ago, we biked from Pittsburgh to DC, and I did a program on that. Just this year, for my 60th birthday, we did a backpacking trip from the north to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and that was really beautiful. So we enjoy that, and that's about it. Thank you.
I know you don't have any of these. And there's a
Thank you.
And Mary Lou was a great past president.
Oh yeah, I was past president and past assistant governor.
Yes, right. And who does the bulletin? And we've decided it's like the history of our club, because she gets everything packed into that bulletin one way or another, and it is the story of our club, and it's beautifully graphed and just awesome. You just have to send her the pictures and the stuff, and she does it. She does it all. Okay.
Ho, ho, ho. We're going to finish up with Keith. Before he gets the opportunity, there's more to him than just Santa, but we have to ask this question. How many of you have been nodding? How many?
I know.
Tell us about
It's on my list. Ho, ho, ho. I wondered how I was going to start this. I really didn't know how far I should go back. I guess basically I was raised in Wisconsin. I'm a rabid Wisconsin Badger fan and a Green Bay Packer fan. Most of the seasoned members, I love that. I've not hidden that fact that I love sports. I, as a young man, graduated high school, went to 1 semester of college. I got straight A's in hell raising, beer drinking, and party going. Pretty much flunked everything else. So my dad told me, well, you can come home and live at home, but you're going to go to work, and you're going to pay rent, and you're going to live by my rules. No way I was going to live by my rules. So I decided, well, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. I love those dress blues that I see the recruiters in. Went in the Corps. It's amazing how much the first 6 months I was in the Corps, how much my father's intelligence grew. He went from pretty dumb to pretty darn smart in 6 months. But I spent a little over 4 years in the Corps, a little bit over a year in Vietnam, came back, got out of the service and went to college. This time, thought maybe I'd better do some good studying. So I graduated from the University of Wisconsin with a BS degree in business administration. My wife said, I thought it was business, I thought the BS degree stood for something else, but it's a Bachelor's of Science, but I found out my wife thinks it's something totally different. But I am a son of a Rotarian who was a Rotarian for over 60 years. Before my dad passed, he made up at this meeting a bunch of times. In fact, I can remember going to make up when I was a member of Princess Anne Rotary over at this club at Adams Restaurant. It was across the street at the old hotel over there. And you go in the meeting room, and it smelled like stale cigarettes and beer because we met in the bar area. Been a Rotarian now for almost 40 years. First, when I got out of college, I went to work for the VA in Washington, D.C. I was very active in the Collegiate Veterans Organization while I was in school. That's what got me to move to moved to Washington. Went to work for the VA. I was offered a job to come down here to be the executive director of the National Alliance of Business, which I did. Brought me to the Tidewater area in, I think it was '76. I joined Princess Anne Rotary, I believe it was either '77 or '78, and have been a Rotarian ever since. I love Rotary. I love going to Rotary clubs and making up, and talk about the small world I just made up at Bella Vista, Arkansas, so which is right north of Bentonville, and Rogers is just south of Bentonville. But on April 14th, I'm going to tell you all about that because I am the program, and I'm going to talk about this trip that my wife and I just finished, 13,000 miles, 27 states, 11 national parks. We had a blast. But that's another story for another time. I came here with the National Alliance of Business, and I went to work for the city of Norfolk. I worked in their financial planning area, doing municipal bond sales. Left there when I had an opportunity to go out to Tidewater Community College and become the program manager for the motorcycle safety program. One of the very, very lucky few that were able to take my avocation and turn it into a vocation. And I worked for TCC for a little over 15 years, running their program. I still have a training site at Bayside and one on the Eastern Shore, so I'm still dabbling in the motorcycle safety business, but I am basically retired, traveling the country and enjoying myself. And in case you haven't guessed, right now is a very busy season for me. I do enjoy being Santa Claus. It's a lot of fun seeing the look on the kids' faces, and it's who I am. If anybody ever see the movie with Tim Allen, The Santa Claus, well, that was me 18 years ago. Santa must have fallen off my roof and I put on his jacket because I've been Santa for the last 18 years. Wow. And I tell folks, I don't look like Santa, I am Santa. Let me check my list.
Just shoot your eye out.
I know you don't have any cups.
No.
And for your motorcycle, we have the four-way test keychain. And I have to say, Keith and I worked together for a while at TCC, and every time I see a motorcyclist doing this, I'm going to call Keith on him. Thank you. We have a little bit of time for some fun finds. Don't you think this program was the best?
Yes.